Hello class and welcome to Experience Design 1. This is week 7. In today's lecture, we're going to talk about interaction design values, 5 principles of interaction design, and assignment 3. What is an interaction design? Because we talked about user experience design and a bunch of other things. Interaction design is more about how you interact with an interface. And it's often about how the buttons react and how the navigation changes. But I'll just give you this definition. Interaction design can be understood in simple but not simplified terms. It is the design of the interaction between users and products. Most often when people talk about interaction design, the products tend to be software products like apps or websites. The goal of interaction design is to create products that enable the user to achieve their objectives in the best way possible. In simpler terms, how do we help users navigate through an interface in a way that reduces cognitive load and makes for an enjoyable experience? That's really the essence of it. Now, of course, there's lots of details that we have to kind of pay attention to, but generally speaking, I think if you're looking at an existing experience, like one of the websites you've chosen, you can quite quickly see bad design. You can see where it breaks down. You can see where user confusion is introduced. And the whole purpose of this course is to identify those problems and be able to come up with solutions. Let's bring it back to a bit of a higher level now and just talk about design values. Now I'm going to go over this quickly because I don't know if it's super important for you guys to know, but generally it's a rule of thumb about the kind of values you should put into your design. And that includes not just a user experience design, but probably graphic design as well. So here are the 4 design values. It should be ethical, purposeful, pragmatic, and elegant. Ethical? What do you mean by ethical? How can design be ethical? Well, in a quite very, very literal way, user interface design can be ethical by being accessible by a broad range of people. That is probably the most important way you can make your design ethical, is to make it so that anybody can access it. Doesn't matter whether they're on a slow computer, whether they're blind, have hearing difficulties, etc., etc. We tend to design for the average person, but we have to be aware there's people that kind of live outside the average. Just to go over it kind of quickly, interpersonal harm, loss of dignity, insult, humiliation, psychological harm. These are also relevant as well because I was just dealing with this on a project. We have a gender selection button on a form we're working on, and they have male and female, and that's it. And we suggested that they include more, at least have an other button. So I'm not even sure other is the right thing. But you could imagine if you were a transgender person and you went to a website and your gender was not reflected there, it might be disappointing or humiliating. You might feel like you're not really listened to. So that's one really sort of specific way you can deal with your website being ethical. You can make it inclusive. Yeah, physical harm. I don't know if this relates too much to you guys. Environmental harm. That would be more about the copy or whatever the client is wanting to do. If you're working for an oil company, you might have a bit of a problem with that. Social and societal harm, exploitation. Could be exploitation of women, for example. These are all things we should take a look at. And as a designer, you're only going to have so much control over what your client wants to do. You could, I guess in a perfect world, you could fire a client if they were being unethical. Sometimes when you're trying to get a paycheck, it's difficult to say no to a job. But I think wherever you can, you should try to work to reduce the harm that whatever you're creating may cause in society. And so the other part of ethical is not just not doing harm, it's improving the human situation. And I think the internet really does provide a place where people's situation can be improved. So without going through all these separate items, I think that generally speaking, as much as you should try to create a place that is welcoming for all people. It's not judgmental, and it's accepting. The other design values are a little bit more straightforward. So purposeful, purposeful design is basically what we're trying to do in this course. We're trying to create an experience for users that lets them achieve their goal as easily as possible and hopefully enjoyably as possible. Um, like I think making it enjoyable is an add-on. I don't think it's necessarily always the primary goal for most clients, but obviously, if you can make the experience enjoyable, the people are more likely to continue with it and finish it. But pragmatic. This one's a little trickier, but pragmatic means that kind of you have to balance the user needs versus the client's needs. You can, we're in a circumstance like this right now with our Green Shield. I probably shouldn't say the client's name. With our insurance company client, and they want the site built so it fulfills their business needs, but some of their business needs are at odds with the user needs. And you know, we've already gone through one session where we did the absolute best user flow, the one that would get people through it the easiest way without too much cognitive load and not roadblock people and get them to drop off. And the client's pushing back on that. And this is where pragmatism comes in, where you have to kind of balance the needs of the user versus the needs of the clients. Because without your clients, you're not building anything. So, you sometimes you have to maybe step back a little bit on what you're hoping to do for the user. Maybe it's not going to be 100% the best experience because of the business requirements of your client, but you should always fight for your users. But at some point, you have to take a more pragmatic stance on it. Elegant, well, elegance is defined in the dictionary as both gracefulness and restrained beauty of style, and a scientific precision, neatness, and simplicity. Elegance in design, or at least in interaction design, incorporates both of these ideas. One of the classic elements in good design is economy of form, using, oh sorry, I don't know why there's a hyphen in there, using less to accomplish more. In interface design, this means using only the screens and widgets necessary to accomplish the task. Less is more in good design. Okay, so this is 5 principles of interaction design. This is like real meat and potatoes, and I've provided some examples here. I hope I've been in trouble recording videos inside the keynote, but let's see if it works. If not, I may have to include links to the videos afterwards. So the 5 kind of biggest principles, there's way more principles of interaction design, but I think the 5 kind of like top most important ones are feedback, feed forward, spatial awareness, user focus, and brand tone of voice. Feedback is the principle of making it clear to the user what action is being taken and what is being accomplished. Many forms of feedback exist in interaction design, including visual, tactile, audio, and more. The key is to design the experience to never leave the user guessing about what action they have taken and the consequences of doing so. I'm just going to show you a short video here where So what we saw there in that video is some examples of feedback. So, you click on a button and the button responds and changes. You move forward and the page slides. It indicates kind of, you're getting feedback on the things you're doing. So it means that you're never in doubt with, that you've clicked that button. So maybe you click the button and it takes a second or two to load. One thing you could do is have like a little spinner on the button that shows that something's going on. That's feedback, just letting the user know what you're doing and where you're at. Feedback could also be like if there's 5 parts to an application form and you're on part 3, making it clear so they understand where they are in that application form. The feed forward, this one's a little bit like feedback's pretty straightforward. Feed forward's a little bit more difficult to kind of wrap your head around. It's a visual affordance, so it's something that shows you what you're going to get if you interact with that widget or that thing on screen. Feed forward kind of nudges you through the correct sequence of actions so you can avoid confusion and better accomplish your goals. I have a little video. I have a little video for that in the video you're going to see in a second. You're going to see how on one side it's showing you there's more when you kind of pull down on the screen. There's more, and you can add another item in. And for the Moldive site, it gives you a little peek of the navigation. It shows you where the navigation is. And those are both kind of feed forward. So let's have a look at those. So did you see that one on the left? You pull down, it shows you there's a new item. It shows you can create a new item by pulling down. On Moldive, it shows a little peek of the nav when somebody pulls to the right. Spatial awareness. This is another one that's a little bit tricky to understand, but you probably do have an intuitive understanding of it. It's a way of using the interface in the sense that it's almost like a 2D panel that can slide around, that there's more information on the left, right, and top and bottom. It gives you kind of awareness of where you are in that navigation. So like a slideshow, you click the right button, you're moving through pictures. In your head, you're getting the sense that the pictures are sliding in from one side and then sliding off, and there's like a continuous series of pictures. So like a picture carousel like that is pretty well understood kind of use of spatial awareness. You know that if you click the other way, that you'll get the one you just saw back. So it gives you this sense that's, because, in a digital interface, we don't have the constraints of the physical world, but this is sort of like an affordance that makes the digital interface resemble the kind of real world, if that makes any kind of sense. I have a couple more examples of that as well. So for the calendar, the days of the week rest side by side. They ease the user between each one. For Stellar, a storytelling app takes the theme further into its UI with the use of pages. Visco, trays of controls act together like a toolkit that you can pull up from the bottom. And Nike, making categories zoom full screen, push to top, and then the layers or subcategories drop down and float into place. So you can see these are sort of like that page flipping. We're using sort of real world sort of physics or reality to kind of show you where you are in the app. And the calendar app has these things that slide back and forth as if you're moving from side to side. So let's have a look at this one. Yeah, so you can see with the one with the physical waste, it opens up and you see what's inside, but you know that when you go back to the top level navigation. User focus. User focus, this is mostly about ways to draw the user's attention to the most important parts of the screen. This is useful, especially on like a sort of a busy interface where you want the user to know right away what their next action is. And so I have a few kind of visual examples of that. So for Pinterest, contextual controls appear the moment they are needed. Paper notifications, layers of animation guide attention. The globe bounces, the tray slides out, and there's a slight glow to the title. Peak, selections take up full screen, get very bright while others fade back. Selections float back into place when done. And Yahoo Weather, motion is the first thing that grabs your attention at the bottom and communicates wind speed. So you can see there how the Pinterest little navigation comes up when you click on the image. When you click on the Earth at the top of the flavor one on the right-hand side of that animation, you get the notifications that pop up. But you can tell that the Earth is kind of throbbing a bit to draw your attention to let you know you have navigations. Let's have a look at this one. So that one draws your attention with color fade. And on the weather one here, you can see there's subtle animations that draw your eyes to the important information. Brand, I think this is the fifth one. I think it is brand tone of voice. Now, I think I've mentioned this before. I think this is something that isn't talked about a lot, but I think it's very, very important to UX design. It's about the website living the brand, being representative of the brand. And I think I've talked about Apple. Apple, the website, the store, the package design, everything is part of the Apple brand, and they all feel like they fit together. It's an experience. There's definitely an Apple feel to it. I would caveat that the Apple Store is a little bit chaotic for my tastes. I would prefer if it was less chaotic. I think that's a little bit off brand for Apple, but yeah, I think that for the most part, across you know everything they do, they have this sense of simplicity and ease of use that I think translates through everything. Let's have a look at a couple of examples here. We have Snapchat. These interfaces are a bit old, I apologize, but they're whimsical, and the ghost is a very important part of the Snapchat brand, and you can see the ghosts in here. So for Flickr, it's subtle and clever. When you refresh someone's profile, the iconic pink and blue dots cycle around. It's a small one, but once again, you're being exposed to the brand once again. Nike Plus, the whole app is about running, and the actual interface itself is sort of like moving through a track. Zappos, people love finding Easter eggs, especially if it's a cat wearing a cape. So let's have a look at these. So you can see the ghosts doing a goal in soccer there, and you can see the dots that rotate, the brand dots for Flickr. Look over here at Nike, and you can see how things move along. They're running on track, and there we have the Easter egg cat, cat wearing a cape. I don't know what the Easter egg of the cat wearing the cape. I don't know how on brand. I don't really know Zappos, but I don't know how on brand that is. But brand is more than just showing like the brand colors and all that. It actually goes to the experience, So if your brand is easy to use and clean and helpful, then your website or your app should reflect those values. Okay, so let's get into assignment 3. It's originally called User Flows and Wireframes, but I'll keep that name just to make it more so you can so it's relevant to you. But I'm changing it. I'm going to take out the user flows. I've decided that after 2 years of trying to teach user flows, it's just too difficult. I think you guys need to do the step that I'm going to get you to do before you can understand why user flow is important. So what we're going to do is your user flow is going to be a clickable prototype. So here's just an important note, because if you go to the assignment PDF in Blackboard, it's going to talk about user flows. We're not doing user flows for this. Clickable prototypes. So I hope all of you are listening to my lectures and coming to my sync classes, because I know I'm going to get a few people that actually do user flows. Let's talk about wireframes first. So wireframes are what you do when you're planning to create a website. And what it is it's a really lo-fi way of representing the content that's on the page. The idea with wireframes, especially low def wireframes, is that you want the client to look at it and see the functionality and all that stuff without being distracted by design, like colors and fonts and copy and all that stuff. Because truth be told, clients will get sidetracked by that, and you might not get the information you want from them in terms of whether this interaction and this user flow is working, this path through the site. So the theory was, to take all that stuff out that can be a distraction, just show the functionality and the content chunk, like what content is supposed to be on this page, get approval for that, and then take it into full design or high definition wireframes. My personal note on this is that I find that low def wires are not completely successful. The one thing that's good about them is that they're easier to do because full designs take a lot more time. Um, and, wireframes are very, very basic and can usually be done very quickly and can be modified, iterated on very, very quickly. As soon as you get into design, everything takes way, way longer. So that's good. That's very, very good. The problem that I've dealt with professionally with low def wireframes is clients don't usually understand them well enough to be able to provide feedback. So, but I think it's useful for you guys to start off with small steps rather than trying to take on. Anyway, the next assignment is the high def wireframes. So you'll be doing high def designs for the next assignment. But for this one, we want you to just kind of work through it with low def wireframes. So what Oh, so before I go a little bit more into wireframes, what are the steps for kind of going through this project? Well, you should choose, on your selected site, the site that you've been working on, there's obviously a user flow that you've been working with in terms of, a critical path. My go-to example is always like if it's a Nike shoe running site, the 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 task you may have gotten the user to do is to buy the cheapest pair of running shoes or something along those lines. Um, so you want to use that user path. You want to take that user path. And basically what you want to do is you want to take a look at how the site's doing it currently, look at the research you've done in the past, and you want to apply it to this. So you want to make it better. What does it mean to make it better? It means, can you take steps out? Can you create an interface element that allows the user to use the site in a better sort of way? So do this stuff, like sketch it out. Sketch out each one of the pages that you're dealing with on the current site and start sketching out ways that you can kind of optimize that or make it better. Look at the competitive analysis you've done. Look at the sites that you've seen that do it better. What learnings can you take from that site that you can apply to this site, right? And what you want to do is start figuring out what pages you need to do that user flow through the site, that user path through the site. So some of the things you can do is define entry points. How do they get into the site? Identify what they're trying to accomplish. What's the success metrics? Like, when will you know you've done a better job? And is it like, and some of these might be kind of more vague, but one of the easiest ones is to remove the number of clicks you need to use to get from the start to the end of it. If you do that, you've already made a better experience for the most part. But it might be something else. It might be just like the website's too cluttered and confusing, right? Maybe it is only 3 clicks to get to the product you're looking for or the thing you're trying to access. But maybe this website is just such a dog's breakfast, you can't actually see where you're supposed to go, and it creates cognitive load. That's something. So that's like your success metric would be to clean up the site, and define the steps users will take from the start to the end. So if they're going through a shopping experience, they have to they have to probably choose if they're women or men. They have to choose whether they're looking for clothes or running shoes. They have to sort through the products. Choose a product, and then go through a payment step through payment gateway. So those would be all the steps in like a typical user flow. You don't want to lay out the whole website. You don't want to excuse me. You don't want to have to figure out every other page. Just this one kind of user flow, this one user task that you've kind of been working on already. When you've identified that, figure out how you can make it better. And when you make it better, I would just sketch out the pages first, just very roughly to get a sense that you've got everything you need in there, and then create wireframes. So if you want to think about wireframes are blueprints for your site. They're blueprints for each page. Each page should indicate all the important elements that should be there. Work through the existing site and attempt to make the user experience better. So take a look at what you've already got and how do I improve upon this? And it may be accomplished by cleaning up the user interface, reducing steps, adding new functionality, or applying best practices. And applying best practices is like what you've seen at other sites that do it better. So some specific notes about wireframes. You don't show images. Don't don't only show text relevant to navigation and titles, maybe like page titles and stuff like that. It's just super important text you want to keep in there. Everything else, just lorem ipsum or just block out. Um, Usually wireframes are grayscale. You don't want to introduce any colors in here right now. That's for high definition. And make sure, because sometimes wireframes are so basic and so bare that it's hard to understand what the intention is. Please include notes with your wireframes. And don't stress too much about wireframes. We'll do a sync class where I kind of go over wireframes in more detail. Here's a few kind of images that show you what wireframes can look like. These ones are super basic. I think you need a bit more content than that. There's this one, which is a little animation. It shows rollover sequences. And then here's some more. So you can see what they've done here. You can see that, there's places where images are supposed to be, it's indicated. They use, they block out text, but it's, maybe the headlines are correct, or maybe not even, right? But I would say anything you have to navigate on, because you're going to do a prototype for this. So any buttons you want users to click should definitely be labeled appropriately. Otherwise, you're not going to understand what to do. And so what I'm going to get you to do is create these wireframes for the whole experience. And then we're going to use XD to put clickable links on them. So you can actually step through as if a user was really going through the website on your wireframes. This is critical because I think that you'll understand the flow better by doing this. You'll realize when you're missing something. I skipped a page. There needs to be a page in between these two pages. I think you will notice that by making it clickable. Whereas I think that sometimes when you just lay out wireframes or do user flow, it's easy to miss a step. When you can see it right in front of you, you really get a sense of what the flow is supposed to be. So the deliverables, there should be wireframes for every page of the user task. Put them in a presentation deck for me with notes. A clickable prototype to move through the user task. This should be done there's a few different things. You can use anything you want, but I think you all have XDs and it's pretty easy to use. And like I said, we can talk about that in a sync class as well. So I give you a sense of how to use it. It's super easy. It's really, really easy. You guys should have no trouble with it. But what ends up happening when you go through XD and you've done it, it creates a link for you. So you would send me that link in your presentation so I can access it. Make sure there's no password on it and make sure it's publicly viewable. And then I can kind of step through your user flow and see how it works. And then as part of the overall presentation, there should be a slide describing what you did to improve the experience. And that's about it. I think that this assignment, you guys will have lots of questions, and I understand that. So let's take our time and we'll go through it, and I'll make sure I explain it so you get it 100%. And that leaves us with taco time. Thank you very much for your attention. I look forward to speaking with you this week, and have a great week. All right, bye-bye.